I got your evidence, breakdowns, ideas, suggestions, and warnings for TOK May 23 essay title number 5. Let's get an A in TOK.
Get an A in TOK.
This essay prompt is one of the strangest. We're going to break a rule that I have always enforced for like a decade in teaching TOK. I'm really excited about this one. You might, if you like this one, you're pretty excited about this too. Let's take a look at the prompt and break it down before we get into the evidence and the ideas. So the prompt is this. Are visual representations always helpful? Let me get a little preview here. Helpful in the communication of knowledge. Discussed with reference to the human sciences and mathematics. Here is where things can get a little weird. It uses the word always. And so with the word always, which is just, completely cut and dry, black and white, is that if one person does not find something helpful, then it's not always, okay? And so even though I was talking with a student, hi Vincent, if you're looking at this, if you're talking with a student who, I was talking with a student who is a very visual learner. So he says, of course, it's always helpful. But then I said, well, that's because you're a visual learner. I said, what if you don't learn by looking at things? He goes, oh yeah, that's right. And so if you are not a visual learner, and visuals aren't helpful, then we can very, very correctly say that visuals are not always helpful, okay? And so it's going to be really easy to say no to this prompt. So then could we just say the answer is no? Well, yeah, you can, but what you need to make sure is you need to explore multiple perspectives, okay? So the key that you want to do is really treat this like a to what extent question, even if it's not. So what we're going to do going back here is we're going to say we are going to answer at least to what extent visual representations are helpful in the communication of knowledge. Okay, so even though this says always, I would just get it out of the way there. They are not always, but we might say they are very often helpful, or they are usually helpful, or they can be helpful, or depending on certain contexts, or certain people, or certain kinds of information. But basically, you want to get at when it comes to visual representations, in what ways, how often, how much are they helpful in, and this is important here, the communication of knowledge, okay? So as we get into some things that might be in the arts or in human sciences, we're not talking about gaining knowledge through visuals. That's not what this is asking. We are talking about communicating knowledge through visuals, okay? So if you're thinking about a scientific study that used visuals in the study, no, that's not what we're talking about. We're only thinking about, I have knowledge, I'm communicating it with a visual. So arts can do that, but you don't just want to be thinking about art in general. You want to be thinking about art that communicates knowledge. Now, after you kind of get some ideas there about how often or to the extent in which visual representations in the communication of knowledge are helpful, and remember, helpful is an important word there, and you can define that if you have a unique perspective on the definition of helpful. That's so TOK. What you want to do there then is provide or preview your final answer in the conclusion. So in your introduction, give away your answer. You're not going to give away all of your details, but you're going to give away the answer that you're going to come up with. So for example, if we're going to say visual representations are almost always helpful in the communication of knowledge, go ahead and say that at the bottom of your introduction. And then also, here's the rule that I've never let my students do, but for this one, I think it's okay. So you can totally put visuals in the TOK essay, but I had a student do this last year, and so I connected with the IB and I asked them, what's the rules about this? They said, and actually in any year, you can totally do it for any topic. But, and there's a big but here, you cannot assume that the examiner will look at it, study it, or even be able to see it. So what you need to do is when you put your visual there, you still need to write about it as though it's not there. That's not hard, but so just the worst thing you could do would be like to take a stock chart, for example. We're going to look at a couple of charts in a minute. Say, go ahead and read this chart, then read my analysis, something like that. That's what you can't do. So you need to explain the visual, no matter what it is, as if the examiner can't see it, but still put it there so that if they want to, they can go look at it. But here's the deal. If you put it there and you're writing about it and it's this prompt, I think they're going to look at it. So I would just say write as if they can't, but assume that they will, but don't have faith. And I don't know what I'm saying. I think you know what I'm saying here. Now let's get into our evidence, and we're going to look at the natural sciences first. And I just want to let you know, in the description, I'm going to put a link where you can get a whole bunch of links to the evidence that I'm using here. I'm not going to give you answers. I'm not going to tell you how to use this evidence to answer the prompt, but I'd love to get you started with some good ideas. And while you're looking at the description there to get the links for the evidence, go ahead and check out getanaintok.com/free stuff. I've got organizers and outlines to help you get started with this. I've also got a discount code for TOK Masterclass, my fully online, on-demand TOK course. You can use coupon code YouTube subscriber, singular, and you can get 10% off of that. So go ahead and check that out. You can also get a hold of me on Fiverr. Okay, I got a really good piece of evidence for this. Check this out. This is an article in the International Journal of STEM Education. So we're talking about education here, thinking about natural sciences and education. The role of visual representation in science practices, from conceptual understanding and knowledge generation to seeing how science works. Now, you're probably going, but Patrick, you were talking about natural sciences, but this is human sciences. Absolutely. But this is talking about teaching science in general, so I think it will work out. Check out this quote. Our conclusions suggest that in teaching science, the emphasis in visualization should shift from cognitive understanding, using the product of science to understand the content, to engaging in the processes of visualization. Implications for teacher education include the need for teacher professional development programs to problematize the use of visual representations as epistemic objects that are part of scientific progresses. So basically, you're just wanting to talk about how are visuals helpful in sciences. That's not really that hard. I think that we would all agree that visuals are usually helpful. So just talk about a way in communicating scientific knowledge that they are. Start with this article, read the whole thing. Don't read this. This quote I gave you is going to be basically say, hey, look, I didn't do my research. But go ahead, you can download the article for free. The link's in the description, and that will really get you going. Another thing that you can talk about, and this may connect with Lang Lit if you're taking Lang Lit, is the rise of infographics, and we love using these in exams very often. And so this form of communication transcends entertainment. And in many formal and academic environments, it is used to convey important or complex information. So you could also look at how governments have used infographics to convey some sort of information. So many different scientists are going to use these, and they're going to be used by private companies and public companies as well. Another thing that you can think about, and this connects with art, but if you focus on the human sciences, it should be okay, is governments using propaganda. So using visuals to communicate knowledge that may or may not be true, but using visuals like the three here on the screen. This is communicating knowledge, and it's being used, it's connecting with political science, which is the discipline of the human sciences, and it's being used with psychology, which is also in the human sciences. So don't just think about charts. We're thinking about communication that is shared through visuals. These images, these paintings, these are visuals. Another thing that we can think about here is economics. They use visuals all of the time. They use codes, they use formulas as well. But what you can look at, and I talked about this in I think Title 4 video, is think about how economists get things wrong. So this happened a lot in the early 2000s. I hope it's not happening again. I really don't want to have another recession. But can you find some visuals dealing with economics that are both good and bad, helpful and not helpful for communicating knowledge? In all of this, though, what I would do is talk about why something is helpful and why something is not helpful. So don't just say this example, this chart, this image, this whatever was helpful or not. You need to break it down and talk about why it was helpful or not, and then what made it helpful or not in the context or with regards to the discipline or the knowledge or who it was shared with. Something about it besides, hey, look, it's a chart. It looks good. Okay, that's not very helpful, okay? So what you need to make sure that you're doing is breaking down the whole process of it communicating knowledge and figure out why it was helpful or not. And there's a million different things that can go into here. All right, now where you knew I was going next, in the maths, it gets really easy. And I totally believe off the top of your head, and maybe that's why you're here, you can come up with a chart or something that was not helpful or that lied in the communication of knowledge. Remember, there's that idea of lies, damned lies, and statistics, right? Maybe you thought, oh, I can find a chart that lied and make that some evidence for title number 5. You probably can, but I'm not going to give you anything that you can come up with just by Googling like deceptive charts or something right now, because I want to make sure that you look a little bit deeper, because you need to assume a lot of people are going to choose this prompt because it's focusing on visuals, and it's really easy to find charts that are lying by Googling deceptive charts or something and picking the first one. So a bunch of students who are going to get D's are going to do that. So that's what I just did here, and I'm going to show you how you can kind of break it down here, but I want to show you a breakdown of what I do. So my key is just don't be lazy. Don't find the first thing that comes up on Google. Find something maybe that you have a personal connection with, a topic that you really like, and think about how those charts or those bar graphs or whatever, how they were helpful, not helpful, and why they were helpful or not helpful in communicating knowledge. So if you take a look at this one, you can see that this was just the first, literally, the first example I got when I Googled deceiving charts. So first, what you can talk about here is that the chart starts off with deceiving numbers on the 2004 side. So it's clear that the Times didn't have a website until 2004, or they had a very bad one, and then it just really took off. And that's why it looks like this chart is just exploding. But yeah, it's really not communicating that much. It's really not helpful. So you can say it's not helpful because the visual lacks context. Secondly, by skewing the numbers on the chart and the right side, it's clear that the Times is outselling the Daily Telegraph. Totally. So the Times here is outselling the Daily Telegraph. But it looks like a lot. Like, look, they're like over double the size, right? Well, no, because the chart doesn't start at 0. It's 485,000 to 446,000. So as you can see, it's not double. It's really deceiving, and we would say it's not helpful. And so if we're breaking down why this chart is not helpful, all we gotta say here is that numbers can be used to skew results. So again, we're not just talking about, hey, it was helpful or not, but we're gonna talk about different reasons why it's not helpful. So if you're watching this video, do not choose this graph, this chart. This is really not that great. It's not that detailed, but what I just did here models the direction that you need to take if you're going to break down a graph or a chart in math. So just to reiterate, my answer would be that visuals are not helpful because of context and skewed math. And that is just one perspective. And then I also want to remind you to think about the thing that my student Keenan brought up. Remember, I do some tutoring. Get a hold of me at Fiverr. The link's down below. He brought up a great point that this prompts always, the word always, is immediately shut down because the helpfulness of any tool in communicating knowledge depends on the person receiving that knowledge. So I think it'd be very easy to think about this prompt in the terms of the person who is using the visual as a tool to communicate their knowledge. But really what we've learned, especially in psychology, is that in receiving knowledge, even if it's true, there's a lot of things that can become a barrier to that, right? So if you are not a visual person, a visual may not be helpful in communicating knowledge, no matter how true or how compelling or how novel that knowledge is, all right? So just think about that. I don't know where you could fit that in, but that's just a really interesting idea. If you need more help, bit.ly/TOK tutoring. I can look at your drafts. We can Zoom. I can help you out. Also, get an A in TOK.com/free stuff. We'll give you an organizer that you can use for this. And then finally, TOK Masterclass will give you way more than you will need, and you will nail this paper. Check those out, coupon code TOK, YouTube subscriber, and I hope that TOK sucks a little bit less than it did at the beginning of this video. I'll see you next time.